Hey guys, tonight we journey deep into the sweltering heart of the Central American rainforest. You're not here for treasure or lost temples, not tonight. No, this is a different kind of expedition. You step through the sticky undergrowth breath, heavy with the scent of moss and decay, and there, hidden between tangled vines and whispering palms, is something steaming. A low, rounded stone structure, small, dark, and strangely inviting, sits quietly on the jungle floor, hissing with gentle vapor. You didn't come all this way to just look at it. You crouch low, shuffle forward, and duck your head under the lintel. The moment you step inside, the air wraps around you like a damp, fevered hug. Your skin prickles, your clothes cling. Welcome to the ancient Maya sweat lodge. These weren't your average bathhouses. In the humid heartlands of what is now Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and Honduras, the Maya carved entire communities out of jungle and stone, and they made sure to leave room for a good, proper sweat. It's not just about hygiene, it's spiritual, it's political, it's medicinal. It's also, if you're not used to it, kind of hard to breathe. The heat hits you like a brick and you wonder how anyone could do this on purpose. But they did. Regularly. Often with babies, elderly, even midwives in tow. And it wasn't just a sideshow, it was central to how they saw the world. You lean back against the curved wall, warm stone pressing into your spine, and try not to faint from the rising temperature. Outside, the thick foliage seems to pulse the distant howler monkeys calling like ancient gods. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop a comment with your location and local time. I love seeing where and when you're listening. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit in the middle of the sweat lodge, or temescal, a word still used today. The stone dome is low, close, womb-like. The air is dense scented with burning copal resin, perhaps mixed with dried herbs like hoja santa or even crushed cacao leaves. Each breath feels like sipping tea through your nose. The Maya weren't the only ones with sweat lodges, but they may have been among the most committed and creative. They built these domes out of carefully fitted stone, sometimes even carving them into hillsides or positioning them near sacred springs. Water was poured over hot rocks in the center pit to create steam simple in concept but powerful in effect. Some scholars suggest these saunas may be among the oldest ritual structures in Mesoamerica, older even than many temples. You imagine early Maya families crouched in these very rooms 1,000 years ago, dripping with sweat, praying, purging, reconnecting. Not just with themselves, but with their ancestors, their gods, their future. It's equal parts therapy and theology. Outside, the jungle hisses and chirps. Inside, silence except for the occasional hiss of water on stone and your own heartbeat in your ears. You're not just sweating, you're shedding. The heat works like memory pulling old aches from your joints, old thoughts from your brain. You feel weirdly clean, or maybe mildly roasted. It's believed the Maya associated the sweat lodge with birth and rebirth. Some even used it during childbirth, believing the steam helped open the body and the soul. In their worldview, steam wasn't just a byproduct, it was sacred breath, a kind of life force mist that blurred the boundary between worlds. Kinda makes your local gym sauna feel a little underwhelming, huh? Interestingly, some archaeological finds suggest the placement of temescals wasn't random. They were often near water sources or caves, both places of spiritual importance. Some were even built along ritual causeways or saxbiab, the white roads that connected Maya cities. Historians still argue whether their proximity to these sacred spaces implies that sweat lodges were part of initiation rites or purification before ceremonies. And then there's the acoustics. These stone domes, small and echoing, would have amplified chants' heartbeats, even the whisper of steam. If you were a shaman, this was your sound studio complete with fog machine. And look, there's a small hole in the roof, a kind of chimney. Through it, you can see stars. Or maybe it's just smoke and imagination. Either way, you're lulled. The walls radiate warmth. You're not sure if you're sweating or melting. Your thoughts are sticky. Your eyelids droop. The Maya endured sweltering tropical climates, and still made time to voluntarily sit in even hotter rooms. There's dedication, and then there's let's boil ourselves alive for the gods kind of dedication. The average temperature inside one of these temazcals could soar over 100 degrees Celsius, hot enough to blister if you weren't careful. But they weren't just rooms. They were metaphors. They symbolized the Earth's womb, the cosmic cycle of life and death, and even the underworld. By entering, you symbolically died to the outer world. By exiting, you were reborn. It's part sweat, part spa, part shamanic science fiction. You shift slightly, steam coiling around you like a lazy snake. There's something hypnotic about the whole setup. The glowing stones, the shadows on the walls, the faint scent of herbs still burning somewhere outside. You don't need to understand it all, you just need to stay still and let it happen. And if you feel a little dizzy, well, that's part of the deal. You close your eyes for just a moment inside the temazcal, and when you open them again, time has bent. The jungle outside pulses with life, but in here it's timeless. The sweat beads on your brow aren't just yours anymore, they feel borrowed, mingled with centuries of steam and breath, as if every exhale in this stone dome is part of an unbroken whisper, stretching back over 1,000 years. The air is thicker now. A new burst of water hits the stones with a sharp hiss and steam roars up like a dragon sighing. You breathe in. The heat slinks down your throat and into your chest like molten honey. You're not just warm, you're wrapped inside and out by something that feels ceremonial. The Maya believed this wasn't just a room, it was a portal. To them, the temazcal wasn't merely physical, it was cosmological. You're sitting inside what they considered the sacred womb of the earth. Every curve of the dome, every flicker of vapor, every scent curling in the air was a metaphor. Birth, death, rebirth, a cycle unbroken. It's oddly comforting if you ignore the occasional mild panic that comes with boiling slowly in a dome with no ventilation. The Maya tied this structure to their entire understanding of the universe. When they stepped into the sweat lodge, they believed they were entering the underworld, Sibalba not to die, but to be cleansed of the world's chaos. Then, as they emerged dripping and dizzy, it was as if they were stepping into life anew. This wasn't just a health routine, it was a cosmic reset. And you're in the middle of it. You glance around the domed chamber. It's tight, low, built intentionally to keep the heat in and distractions out. There's no furniture, no windows, no nonsense. Just earthstone steam and spirit. You sit cross-legged near the center pit where glowing stones, the abuelitas or grandmothers as they're sometimes called, radiate light and memory. You feel them pulsing with more than just heat. A woman beside you mutters softly. You realize she's not speaking at you but to the stones. She's part of the ceremony. Maybe a healer, maybe a mother, maybe both. Her words aren't modern Spanish. They're older from a Mayan dialect that hasn't changed much since the classic period. You don't understand, but you don't need to. Her tone is enough reverent rhythmic low as a lullaby. Historians still argue whether the sweat lodge was originally a personal family-centered space or one reserved for high-status ceremonial use. The truth might be both. Evidence points to multiple uses: births, deaths, healing divination, maybe even politics. Like a cosmic Swiss Army knife. Versatile, damp, and unexpectedly spiritual. Another figure crouches near the doorway. A shaman. He's preparing herbs bundles of crushed leaves, perhaps some sacred tobacco, maybe even a pinch of hallucinogenic morning glory seeds. The Maya weren't shy about altering the senses. After all, when you're already sitting in a womb-shaped oven of steam and shadow, why not throw in a little astral projection for good measure? And then there's the fire. Outside, someone tends the flame that heats the stones. And it's not just for utility, it's symbolic too. Fire represents transformation, destruction, cleansing. As the hot stones are brought in one by one, there's a kind of reverence to the act. You imagine the stone's journey from mountain to fire to sauna, mirroring your own internal one hard-tested, softened, reshaped. There's a soft chanting now, a simple melody, cyclical and soothing. Your heart begins to beat with it. You don't know the words, but you feel them. The steam swirls thickly now. Your skin is slick, your lungs heavy, and yet there's a strange clarity. Your thoughts slow, The to-do list in your head dissolves. The weight you didn't know you were carrying lifts. Suddenly you remember something odd. Archaeologists once found a temazcal buried under rubble in a Maya site, completely sealed off, but inside were offerings: obsidian blades, clay figurines, and tiny carved bones. Were these sacrifices toys' medical tools? Historians still debate the purpose. You imagine some long-lost healer making a final prayer as she sealed the door shut forever. The scent changes slightly. Is that cinnamon or something spicier? Smoked bark, the Maya were master herbalists, blending fragrances not just for aroma but for healing and spiritual effect. They believed certain plants could call spirits open minds or ward off illness. This wasn't just a place to sweat, it was a place to heal your soul, treat your fever, mend your broken heart. Outside, thunder rumbles low and sleepy. A reminder you're in the middle of a rainforest. The jungle doesn't stop just because you're on a spiritual retreat. The walls of the temazcal tremble faintly, but the heat holds steady. You're cocooned. Your breath is slow. You feel for the first time in a long while, not like a guest in the world, but part of it. The woman finishes her chant. The shaman tosses a handful of dried petals onto the stones. They flash into smoke with a soft pop, releasing a scent so ancient you half expect to remember a past life. You don't, but you do smile. Your fingers are wrinkled, your clothes soaked. But your mind quiet. Not empty, just still. Like the surface of a sacred spring. And in that silence, as the steam coils once more through the dome and slips out through the rooftop hole into the dark canopy above you, wonder how many others sat here before you, chasing the same stillness, whispering to the same stones, waiting for rebirth in the arms of heat and shadow. The stones hiss again, and this time the sound is sharper, more insistent, like the breath of something ancient and alert. You glance down at the glowing pile of heat in the center of the temazcal and wonder what the Maya saw when they stared into that same shimmer. Fire spirit, something divine. They had a god for this, of course. The Maya had a god for practically everything, but one in particular is relevant here, a lesser-known deity who, depending on which region or dialect you're listening to, might be called Ixchel-Chak, or one of several fire-related underworld gods. But in some localized myths, the sweat lodge itself had its own guardian, a spirit or force responsible for the heat, the healing, and the transformation. You picture this god as neither benevolent nor cruel, just elemental, sweaty, powerful. Definitely the kind of deity who would approve of making mortals sit in a stone oven until they hallucinate their family tree. You can practically hear him whispering through the stones. Stay a little longer, you're not done yet. This was spiritual endurance training. To survive the temazcal was to prove something to yourself, to your family, to the gods. And the Maya believed the gods were always watching. That heat you're sweating through. That's divine attention. Better sit up straight. Some relief comes in the form of cool water ladled gently over your shoulders by another participant. It's a shock, but a welcome one. The kind of shock that reminds you you're still in your body. Even if your mind is trying to float somewhere between dimensions, you murmur thanks. They nod, and you both return to the shared silence of steam. The Maya weren't subtle about their relationship to suffering. Pain was transformative. Sweat was sacrifice. And in some rituals, literal bloodletting accompanied the steam. That's right. Nobles might cut themselves, let the blood drip into the stone pit, and mix it with steam as an offering. You shift uncomfortably. Suddenly your own sweat feels rather humble. Historians still argue whether this kind of ritual bloodletting was common practice in the temazcal, or if it happened only during extreme ceremonies. Some evidence suggests it was a rare high-stakes event like a cosmic job interview, but with more bleeding. Others think it might have been more regular, especially among the elite who had a penchant for turning every bath into a divine PR stunt. Still, not everything was intense or painful. The temazcal also had deeply human uses. People went there to bond, to talk, to grieve, to recover. A place where sweat replaced small talk and silence said more than words. The echoing dome amplified everything, a laugh, a sob. A story told just above a whisper. One fringe theory suggests that the shape of the temazcal wasn't just symbolic, but acoustic. That the rounded walls helped transmit chants and vibrations, turning every session into a kind of sonic therapy. That hum in your ears might not be just blood pressure. Might be centuries of echo bouncing around like a quiet chorus. You lean into it. There's a rhythm here. The fire crackles outside. The steam sighs. The shaman murmurs. Your body drips. There's a beauty in the repetition, a sacred boringness. It's so peaceful you almost forget how intense the buildup was. Like running a marathon just to sit very, very still at the end. And about that deity again, there's a theory that the sweat lodge was seen not only as the womb, but as a mouth. That you were being swallowed by the earth, digested by the gods, and then spit out cleaner, clearer, newer. The stones in that metaphor are the teeth. The fire, well, stomach acid, probably. It's poetic, if a little gross. Still, you respect it. It's hard not to. The Maya built entire cosmologies into these spaces. They weren't just sweating for the fun of it. Every part of their world, sky, underworld, jungle stars was stitched together through rituals like this. You think of the massive stone cities they built, Tikal, Palenque, Copan, all of them with evidence of temazcals nearby. Even among the temples and pyramids, these humble steam huts had their place. You exhale deeply. The breath rattles in your chest and rises into the thick air like a ribbon. It joins 1,000 others' breaths, long spent, long forgotten, yet still here, still part of the dome. You start to see how this could become addictive. Not just the heat, but the stillness, the clarity. There's something about being cooked slowly that strips away all your social armor. There are no lies in a sweat lodge, no ego, just moisture, and maybe the faint hope that you'll come out a little better than you went in. Outside, night is falling fast. You hear frogs, the distant beat of drums. Maybe a festival. Maybe just memory. You're not sure anymore what's current and what's echo. You only know the stones are glowing hotter now, and the god of sweat, whoever he is definitely watching. You imagine him sitting cross-legged in the fire, laughing gently. Still in there, he asks, still trying to figure it all out. You nod. Yeah, still here. The next time your eyes flutter open, the stones have dimmed slightly as though the heat has taken a breath of its own. Someone adds a fresh one from outside carefully, reverently, and the hiss that follows is sharper than before, like a serpent waking up in the pit. You shuffle back a little on the stone floor, aware again of the very real possibility that someone somewhere has passed out in one of these things and simply turned to soup. Still, you're impressed. Building a structure like this in the middle of a jungle where it rains 9 months out of the year, where everything rots, where the soil tries to swallow stone like it's dessert, was no small feat. And yet, the Maya didn't just manage it, they perfected it. You picture the scene workers carving stone blocks with obsidian tools, mud-slicked hands dragging river rocks from miles away, sweat already pouring before the sweat lodge even existed. You can almost hear them grunting, joking, occasionally swatting at howler monkeys that probably thought this was all very inefficient. The dome had to be just the right shape. Too tall and the heat would rise too fast. Too wide and the steam would thin. The Maya likely used trial and error over generations, gradually refining the architecture through sheer stubborn brilliance. No cement, no scaffolding, just geometry patience and maybe a little divine guidance, or so they'd say. And water. So much water. Even today it takes time to find a consistent source. The Maya engineered entire water systems, underground channels, cisterns, and even aqueducts to feed their cities. Some of these systems still work. Modern engineers have studied them and come away equal parts baffled and amazed. The jungle wants chaos, but the Maya carved order into it, with stone and sweat. Historians still argue whether some of these temazcals were standalone healing stations, or if they were part of the larger bathhouse complexes. At places like Tikal, you find them nestled close to temples or ball courts. Maybe the warriors took a steam after a game. Maybe the priests did before a ritual. Maybe both. In one site, Aguateca researchers found what they believe was a noble compound with an attached sauna. Imagine that your own private jungle steam chamber right next to your writing room. makes your bathroom remodel feel a little underwhelming. You shuffle forward again, closer to the stones. The steam rises lazily now, not in sheets but in soft curls that catch the low firelight and turn golden in the dark. Your skin tingles. It's that warm, prickly feeling that comes just before your muscles fully give up and your mind tries to leave your body like a slow balloon. Somewhere outside, someone's chopping wood. You hear the soft thwack, thwack, thwack echo through the jungle, and you realize again how much effort went into each session. First, gather the stones, then build the fire, then haul the water, then sit and roast until your ego slides off like a wet towel. All for a few hours of heat and humility. You start to understand the quiet pride of it. The Maya didn't just survive their environment, they worked with it. The jungle was both challenge and collaborator. Plants became medicine, rain became ritual. Even the unbearable heat became holy, and the materials, they weren't random. The stone used for temazcals was often volcanic, chosen for its ability to absorb and radiate heat without crumbling. Some were limestone, others basalt. These rocks weren't just passive, they were seen as alive, ancient, full of memory. One fringe belief among modern Maya communities holds that stones used in the sauna remember the pain and prayers of those who've sweated before you. You're literally sitting in shared history. That's why the placement of the lodge mattered too. It couldn't be just anywhere. Often they were built facing cardinal directions or situated near caves, places the Maya believed connected directly to the underworld. You realize sitting here that you might very well be parked right on top of a spiritual hotspot. Not just a jungle clearing, a cosmic crossroad. And still it's quiet. A bead of sweat rolls down your back. Another follows. You wonder how many have dripped before yours, how many humans across how many centuries have sat here in the same position, staring at the same kind of glow, hoping for the same kind of healing. The shaman shifts slightly. He dips a cloth into a wooden bowl of cold water, wrings it out, then places it on the neck of an older man near the edge of the circle. The man sighs deeply, not with exhaustion, but with release. You know that sigh. You've made it. Maybe recently. The Maya believed the temazcal could purge not just illness, but emotion. They didn't separate the two. Sorrow lived in the stomach, anger in the liver, guilt in the blood. The steam was a kind of emotional detergent. Sweat it out, steam it clean, come out shiny and new. It's not such a strange idea, really. Modern studies have shown how sweating releases endorphins, how heat can ease anxiety, how rituals, even the repetitive ones, help people grieve hope, reset. The Maya just got there a few centuries early. Give or take a millennium. You glance up at the roof again. There's that small opening, the smoke hole. Through it, a single vine creeps in, silhouetted against the faint glimmer of moonlight. It looks like a hand reaching down, or maybe up. You're not sure which side of the world you're on anymore. You smile, because maybe that's the point. You stretch out your legs a little. Careful, don't touch the center stones. They're still breathing fire. Your thighs scream softly as they unstick from the stone floor, and you realize just how heavy your body has become. Not with exhaustion, but with stillness. Like someone turned down gravity by half and replaced the air with warm cotton. The steam curls around your arms as if it's alive, stroking, soothing, inviting. And in this haze, you make out a figure across from you. She's older, wrapped in loose cloth, her hair streaked with silver, and twisted back into a single long braid. Her posture is impossibly upright, regal even. Beside her is another figure much younger. Her daughter, her apprentice, her patient. You're about to find out. The young woman winces slightly. She's breathing deep, hand on her belly. Labor pains, maybe. And the elder, she shifts closer, whispering something low and musical. Her hand reaches out steady, calloused, sure, and cups the girl's chin. Her thumb traces a line down her jaw. You're witnessing one of the temazcal's most sacred roles as a space for birth. Not metaphorical birth this time, real biological messy birth. The Maya used these saunas as birthing chambers, especially for women, without access to temples or midwives. And even when access wasn't an issue, the spiritual aspect of a sweat birth was considered potent, auspicious. Imagine that. No bright white hospital lights. No antiseptic. Just heat breath and the slow rhythm of steam. The body opening like a flower in the heat, the new life sliding into the world wrapped in mist. Historians still debate how common this practice was. Some say only certain classes did it. Others argue it was widespread, especially in rural communities where the temazcal served as both hospital and church. But archaeological finds like small figurines of women giving birth in squat positions suggest it wasn't rare. The elder reaches for a gourd and pours water slowly over the stones. The hiss is gentle now, not angry, like a sigh, a prayer. The younger woman groans and the sound is low ancient. It echoes through the chamber and settles in your bones. The midwife or shaman or both begins to chant softly. It's rhythmic, almost a lullaby. Not for the baby, not yet. For the mother, for the room, for the ancestors maybe, who are surely crowding the ceiling like sleepy spirits, watching their own bloodline crawl one step further into the future. This was more than healthcare, this was cosmology. In the Maya worldview, everything was connected. The mother, the baby, the breath, the steam, the stone, they weren't separate entities. They were expressions of the same life force, and to give birth in the temazcal was to allow the earth to midwife you. The dome was the womb of the world. You entered and became more than yourself and emerged anew with someone else now, depending on your heartbeat. You can't help but marvel at the logic. The warmth loosens muscles. The steam softens skin. The herbs purify, and the silence allows focus. Modern birthing suites have jacuzzi tubs and dimmable lights. The Maya beat us to it by 2,500 years with no tech, just trust. You lean back a little more. Your own breath feels deeper now, more rooted. The air, though thick, is somehow easier to take in. Maybe because you're beginning to understand that this isn't just a historical curiosity. It's a system, a belief, a rhythm, and the rhythm continues. You hear the slap of wet cloth, the drip of sweat on stone. The elder hums softly now, checking the girl's belly, adjusting a folded cloth under her hips. The baby is coming, not fast but steady. You sense it, like a low drum beat in the steam. Elsewhere in the lodge, no one speaks, but everyone watches. Respectfully, quietly. You're not just witnessing a birth, you're participating in a ritual. And somehow, even though you're just sitting there, every drop of your sweat feels like an offering. There's a moment sharp, loud, and short when the younger woman cries out, her whole body arching. Then silence. Then something small and wet enters the world, cradled instantly in warm cloth. The elder nods once firmly. The job is done. No applause, no fanfare, just a baby breathing steam for the first time. You feel it in your chest, the pull of history, the intimacy of it. This happened thousands of times over thousands of years in rooms just like this across jungle valleys and hilltop cities and tiny villages. No monitors, no epidurals, just breath and heat and strength. The elder rinses her hands in a small bowl. She hums a few more notes. Then slowly, deliberately, she lifts the cloth-wrapped newborn and holds it near the center stones. Not close enough to burn, but close enough to warm. To bless. To introduce. One fringe belief still held in some modern Maya communities says that the first steam a baby breathes helps shape their soul. That the way their skin feels in the heat sets their temperament. That the steam remembers their first heartbeat and carries it forward. Maybe that's true, maybe not. But in this room right now, watching the elder bow her head and the young mother finally exhale, you believe it. Even just a little. The air is thick with a new kind of calm. The baby's breath is quiet, barely a ripple in the heat. The elder returns the child to its mother, who now leans back against the stone wall, her face shiny with effort and release. Her eyes are closed, but her fingers gently trace the curve of her newborn's back. You watch her breathe slower now as the rhythm of the room settles once more. And then there it is. A smell faint but familiar. Herbal, sharp, sweet and woody at once. Something's been added to the stones. A handful of leaves, a twist of bark, maybe a crushed flower. The hiss is gentler this time, the steam softer. It fills the air not with heat but with memory. You breathe in, There's eucalyptus maybe. Or a close cousin. Something minty that prickles your sinuses, waking you up without shaking you. Beneath that, a smoky note copal resin most likely burned by Maya priests for centuries, used to summon gods. Or at least keep mosquitoes away? Hard to say which was more urgent. The Maya were brilliant botanists. They didn't just steam for steam's sake. They infused every session with purpose, using plants as medicine, incense, perfume, even mild hallucinogens. Some Temazcals had herbalists on site who would mix custom bundles based on what was wrong with you: a cough, a curse, a broken heart. Each plant had a purpose. Each steam, a story. Modern researchers still struggle to identify all the plants they used. Some recipes have been lost. Others survive in fragments passed down in oral tradition, or recorded by cautious Spanish scribes who thought every Maya herb was either a miracle or witchcraft. Sometimes both. You catch another scent, something spicy, almost peppery. It tickles your nose and makes your eyes water just slightly. Chili smoke. It wouldn't be unheard of. Some Maya healers believed in purging sickness through tears, sneezes, or a full-body sweat. If the patient didn't cough, the medicine wasn't working hard enough. But the real magic came from combinations. Bundles of plants carefully chosen tied together and waved through the steam like wands. Hoya Santa with its mild numbing effect. Allspice for digestion. Crushed cacao leaves for energy. And on rarer occasions, more potent herbs like morning glory seeds or toad venom used in tiny doses to induce visions. You're not seeing visions yet, but the room does feel a little dreamier now. The herbs blur the edges of everything. The light glows softer. Shadows dance more slowly. Even the baby seems to blink in slow motion, his tiny hands curling around the steam like he's trying to hold it. A woman across the chamber begins to sing. Her voice is low breathy, not quite in any key you recognize. But it fits. It fits the room, the rhythm, the hush. It floats on the mist like pollen on water. And then someone else joins her. A second voice, then a third. A chorus builds not loud but close. No harmonies, just layers. The scent shifts again now. Floral, delicate, like marigold petals left in the sun. You wonder how many plants they had access to, how many hundreds of species bloomed just outside these walls. The Maya used over 500 documented medicinal plants. Probably more. Some were rare, some were everyday garden herbs, but all were sacred. Historians still argue whether the use of herbs in the Temazcal was more medicinal or spiritual. Was it chemistry or prayer healing or placebo? But to the Maya, the distinction didn't matter. It worked. So it was real. You reach out and touch the wall beside you. The stone is slick but steady. Warm, not scalding. You feel the pulse of the room through your fingertips. It's alive. And not just with people. There's a theory, a slightly fringe one, but romantic, that some Maya temples were designed to channel sense through ventilation systems. That priests and healers knew how to direct herbal smoke through hidden tunnels, letting it rise up during ceremonies at just the right moment. Like divine aromatherapy? Honestly, you wouldn't put it past them. You think of all the senses activated in this space: heat, scent, sound, touch. The only one not directly overwhelmed is taste. But even that's affected. Your mouth tastes like salt, like steam, like something old and essential. The baby stirs, snuffling quietly. The mother kisses his forehead, murmuring something soft. It might be a name, or a prayer, or both. Names mattered to the Maya. They carried meaning, lineage, even prophecy. Some children were named after the day they were born in the Tzolk'in, the sacred calendar. Others were named after dreams or signs seen in the Temazcal mist. You close your eyes again and inhale. The herbal steam slips into your chest like a soft hand. You don't know what the plants are doing, but you believe they're doing something. Calming you, clearing you, rewriting something subtle in your blood. Outside the jungle shifts, leaves rustle. A monkey howls. Somewhere a bird screeches like it's late for a very important meeting. But inside nothing moves. The air is too dense, too sacred to disturb. And then one last smell. Hard to place. Earthy. bitter, slightly sweet. Maybe it's cacao freshly ground, or maybe it's just the stones. You lean into it hoping the memory will linger, because you're starting to understand something. Very Maya healing isn't just about feeling better. It's about remembering who you were before you forgot. You've lost all sense of time now. There's no clock in the Temazcal, just breath heat and the lazy rhythm of the sweat rolling down your ribs. You shift slightly and it's like moving through warm syrup. Every motion is slow, deliberate, like your body's been reprogrammed to exist on jungle time. That might be why it takes you a moment to notice the man who just entered barefoot, broad-shouldered, and clearly not nobility. His skin is dark with sun, his hair tied back in a simple knot. A farmer, maybe. A hunter. He looks like someone who spent the whole day hauling maize or weaving baskets or chasing down a particularly disrespectful turkey. But he doesn't hesitate. He kneels respectfully at the edge of the circle and waits for someone to acknowledge him. And they do. No guards, no attendants. No whispered sorry, sir. This steam is reserved for the elite. Because here's the thing, this wasn't just for kings. The Maya world was famously hierarchical. You had lords, scribes, artisans, warriors, farmers, slaves. And yet the Temazcal may have been one of the rare spaces where those boundaries blurred. It was sacred, yes. But it was also personal. Communal. In some villages, entire families would gather in the steam together. Grandparents, mothers, children. Everyone sweating out their bad dreams and mosquito bites side by side. Historians still argue whether this open access applied to all cities or only the smaller, less centralized ones. Some sites show signs of elite-only bath structures, fancier stonework, more ornate altars. But others like Copan and Yachilan have smaller, more modest sweat houses built right near residential zones. Suggesting maybe sweat was the great equalizer. The farmer across from you doesn't look uncomfortable. He's been here before. He closes his eyes and begins to hum softly, matching the rhythm that's still drifting in the air from earlier songs. It's not a performance. It's not for attention. It's for him, and maybe for his ancestors. You wonder what his life looks like outside this room. Early morning's dirt under his nails, sore knees. But here he's just another body in the steam. Equal, sacred, soggy. There's something deeply democratic about sweat. You can't fake it. You can't outsource it. You can't make someone else do it for you. You show up, you sit, you melt. Everyone leaves with wrinkled fingers and an empty head. No exceptions. You start to notice the variety in the room. One woman wears carved jade earrings, her skin oiled, and her posture impossibly graceful. Next to her, a boy no older than 10, knees up to his chest, eyes wide, possibly regretting his life choices. In the corner, an elder leans back so relaxed he might dissolve into mist. And in between them all, people from all walks of life united by heat, humidity, and a shared desire to suffer just enough to feel new again. You'd think something this special would be hoarded by the powerful. But the Maya had a different view. Sacred didn't mean exclusive, it meant essential, and that's probably why the Temazcal survived. It wasn't built solely for ceremonies or nobles, it was practical, adaptable. It served purposes that didn't require a priest or a pyramid. If you had a fever, a bad back, a rough week, you went in. If you were a mother, a warrior, or just a guy who needed to get the damp jungle funk out of his bones, you went in. And when you emerged, you didn't just feel better. You felt clean. Not just skin clean, but memory clean. Like your mistakes were lighter, your grief less sticky, your thoughts smoother. That was the goal. Not perfection, just lightness. There's a story passed down in the highlands about a Maya boy who used to sneak into the Temazcal at night. He wasn't allowed because he was too young, but he'd curl up in the warm stone shadows after his family left and listen to the steam talk. He said it whispered secrets, that it helped him remember things that hadn't happened yet. When he grew up, he became a healer. Now, is that story true? Probably not. But do you believe it right now, half dreaming in the jungle mist? Absolutely. A small bowl is passed your way. You peek inside. A dark, bitter-smelling tea. One of the attendants nods an invitation, not an order. You sip. It's earthy, slightly sour with a hint of bark and pepper. Some kind of tonic, likely brewed from jungle roots. It tastes like dirt in dreams. The farmer sips next. Then the jade earring woman. No rank here, just ritual. One fringe theory suggests the Maya saw the Temazcal as a kind of social reset. That inside the hierarchy paused. No lords, no peasants. Just bodies doing the most human things, sweating and existing. When you left, of course, the titles returned. But for that hour, the steam made everyone sacred. You exhale slowly, the tea warming your chest. Outside, the jungle breathes. Inside, so do you. And even though no one says a word, you're beginning to feel it, not just the heat, but the community. The bowl has been passed around and emptied, and the steam has grown thicker again, wrapping the group like a damp blanket, stitched from the breath of everyone who came before. You lean forward just enough to see the glowing rocks once more, and for the first time tonight they look ominous, not just hot, alive, watching. And it's here in this softened state that your mind catches up to something you've been avoiding. Not all rituals in the Temazcal were gentle. Because while this dome was a place of birth and healing and whispered lullabies, it was also sometimes the antechamber to sacrifice. You try not to shift too much. It's not like the walls are about to close in on you, but there is something weightier in the air now. The old man in the corner stares into the stone pit with a reverence that borders on unease. And the shaman, yes, you're sure he's a shaman, now has begun to burn something new. It doesn't smell like herbs or bark. It smells metallic. The Maya believed that purification wasn't always pretty. To be clean sometimes meant pain. To be pure sometimes meant blood. And while the Temazcal wasn't the place of actual sacrifice that came later, it was often the spiritual doorway to it. A necessary first step. The heat, the sweat, the mental unraveling, it all prepared you to do the unthinkable. And for some, the unthinkable meant climbing a temple with your chest bared and your heart steady. You swallow. Historians still argue whether every sacrifice was voluntary. Some absolutely were. Prisoners, yes. But also volunteers, chosen ones who believed that dying for the gods was not just honorable but essential. That the sun wouldn't rise without that offering. That crops would fail, rivers would dry, babies would be born silent. And before those sacrifices there was steam. Lots of it. A fringe belief, though not without archaeological backing, suggests that some Temazcals were used as holding places. Not cells exactly. More like spiritual marination. The sacrifice would sit in the dome, sweat out their fear chant, maybe even hallucinate, and then emerge cleansed, resigned, ready. You shift uncomfortably again. But there's another side to this. Sacrifice wasn't always death. Sometimes it meant cutting your ear or your tongue and letting a few drops of blood fall into the steam. The idea wasn't gore, it was offering. You gave something precious pain, yes, but also life force. And then you walked away lighter, a little dizzy, a little sacred. You remember hearing about the bloodletting scrolls, Maya carvings showing nobles pulling thorns through their tongues or piercing their skin with stingray spines? It sounds horrific, but to them, it was an intimate dialogue with the divine. A sacrifice of clarity, of ego. One site, Piedras Negras, features a sculpture of a queen performing a bloodletting ritual with a Temazcal faintly carved in the background. Some scholars think the sequence shows her preparing herself through steam, then stepping into ceremony with full authority. Not just queen, priestess. Outside, the jungle stirs. A bird calls, a monkey hoots. You try to anchor yourself in the now, but your mind won't let go of the image, the glow of sweat on skin, the gleam of obsidian, the sharp breath of someone about to surrender something precious. And yet, even this has its peace. To the Maya, death wasn't an end. It was a doorway. And sometimes the Temazcal was the rehearsal room. You try to ground yourself again. The steam is no longer sharp. It's warm cushioning. Your heartbeat slows. The faces around you are calm. No one's afraid, not even the shaman. Maybe because they understand something you're still learning, that surrender can be beautiful, even when it's terrifying. Another smell enters the mix, this one soft, almost buttery. Beeswax. Or maybe it's copal again, burning cleaner this time. Whatever it is, it dulls the edge of the previous scent, returning you to something gentler. The shaman murmurs almost too low to hear. A prayer, maybe? Or a release. One theory suggests that the emotional shock of sacrifice was lessened by the Temazcal. that those destined for death would enter the dome, and by the time they emerged, they'd already shed their fear. It's possible. When you sit in heat like this long enough, everything you think is essential starts to peel away. Ego, doubt, memory. You breathe in, and suddenly you remember that fringe idea from earlier, the stones that remember. What if it's true? What if the very rocks in front of you have stored every prayer, every gasp, every drop of blood ever offered in this space? You stare at them half hoping they'll whisper something. They don't, but they do seem to shimmer, and maybe that's enough. The older woman across the chamber rises slowly. She's wrapped in a new cloth, now hair damp, face glowing. She walks to the center, kneels beside the stone pit, and lays down a small bundle wrapped in red thread. An offering. Could be anything. A seed, a feather, a folded note to a god. Then she stands and bows not to the shaman, but to the room, to the dome itself. Then she exits, and just like that, the air feels lighter. You're reminded again that the Temazcal was never just one thing. It was birth and death, cleansing and bleeding, fear and peace, a paradox sealed in steam. And somehow it holds. The steam has softened once more into a gentle haze, thick enough to blur the edges of everyone in the room, but not so dense that you can't see the slow shifting of bodies around you. The farmer leans back, arms resting on his knees. A few others lie flat now, steam rising from their chests like quiet smoke signals. And somewhere near the door, the shaman murmurs to someone just outside. A change is coming, a new round of stones maybe, or something else. And then they appear. Two figures stepping into the dome with the calm confidence of men who have never lifted a basket of maize in their lives. Their robes are cleaner. Their bracelets gleam in the low light. One even has a carved pendant shaped like a jaguar's head, polished obsidian catching the flicker of the fire outside. You'd bet your last cup of herbal tea these two are nobles. They settle near the center just across from the farmer and the elder. There's no tension, no glares, no drama. But there's definitely a shift in the air. Not everyone is equal even here. But the fact that they're here at all says something. The Maya elite weren't above sweating with the people. In fact, they may have used the Temazcal for politics as much as for purification. Imagine it two rival lords enter the dome. No weapons, no bodyguards, just heat breath and steam. What better place to soften a hardened heart, or break it completely? Historians have found murals showing Maya nobles seated in circles holding court, not in temples or throne rooms, but in what appears to be domed chambers. The details are faint but suggestive. A meeting in mist, a negotiation conducted half naked and fully drenched. It sounds ridiculous until you sit here like you are now and realize how quickly steam strips away pretense. You can't really bluff when your nose is running and your hair is plastered to your face. One fringe theory, though it's gaining traction, suggests that peace treaties were occasionally formalized inside the Temazcal. Not signed, obviously. Ink would never survive this humidity, but sealed through ritual through shared sweat. As if the dome itself bore witness and the steam absorbed the promises. You imagine it. Two factions at war. Months of bloodshed. Then finally the leaders agree to meet. Not at the battlefield, not at the palace, but here, inside a stone oven full of flower-scented fog. They sit across from each other, eyes locked. The shaman pours water, the steam rises, and slowly over the course of hours the anger melts, or at least weakens. Politics by perspiration. Even the gods would be impressed. The noble with the jaguar pendant leans forward now. He speaks softly, too softly for you to make out the words, but his tone is steady, deliberate. The man beside him nods once, then replies, "It's not casual. This isn't banter. It's diplomacy. The old-fashioned kind. The human kind. No quills. Just eye contact and shared dehydration. And there's strategy in it, too." The Temazcal levels the field. It's hard to posture when your loincloth is soaked and your eyeliner has melted. Whatever deal they're making, it's forged under pressure, literally. You glance back at the farmer. He watches them, expression unreadable. Not resentful, just observant. Maybe this is normal. Maybe he's seen lords and ladies negotiate peace deals right next to people treating sore knees and stubborn coughs. The Temazcal accepts them all, and maybe that's the point. Another voice joins the conversation, now soft, female clear. One of the jade-wearing women you noticed earlier. She speaks without hesitation, and the nobles listen. That's notable. In most public forums, her voice might be ignored or dismissed. But here, she's part of the circle, and no one sweats more than anyone else. That earns weight. One of the nobles smiles genuinely, not performative. Just grateful. You watch him exhale slowly and nod. Something just shifted. You don't know what. But the room feels calmer. The stones hiss softly as the shaman pours a last ladle of water over them. The steam rises again, but this time it feels different. Less punishing, more like a blanket, and that perhaps is the magic of the Temazcal. Outside, the world is stratified complex, layered with titles and rules. But in here, titles blur, speech softens, egos melt, and sometimes if the conditions are just right, so does conflict. Some modern Maya communities still use the Temazcal as a place to solve disputes. Not formally. Not with judges or lawyers, just families, friends, neighbors. They sit in the heat until the edge comes off their anger, until the silence does what shouting never could. You close your eyes. Try to imagine your world working like this. Politicians in steam chambers, CEOs in sweat circles. Imagine how many bad decisions might be avoided if everyone had to steam them out first. One last sound reaches your ears, a quiet clink metal on stone. You open your eyes to see the noble with the pendant, placing a small object at the base of the center stones. A token, an offering. A symbol maybe of what was decided here? Then he rises, bows, and exits. No speech, no applause, just steam. You exhale again. The air is so humid it feels like you're breathing through cloth. But you don't mind, because you've just watched power at its most human. Dripping, humble, real. By the time the noble with the jaguar pendant steps out the room, feels like it's exhaling too. You watch the steam shift slightly toward the open doorway, drawn to the sudden cooler air, like a breath it had been holding in. For a moment you consider following him, but your body heavy and soft with sweat decides otherwise. And that's when the sound hits. Clanking, metallic, a rustle of heavy fabric, the thud of unfamiliar boots against packed earth, the quiet cadence of a language that doesn't belong here. Spanish. You freeze not in fear exactly, but in historical dissonance. You're still sitting inside an ancient Maya sauna wrapped in steam and ritual, but beyond the low stone wall, time has just skipped ahead 5 centuries. The jungle outside rustles, not with jaguars or monkeys, but with conquistadors in sweat-soaked armor, wiping their brows and muttering curses. The Spanish arrived in the 1500s like a fever dream, armed, confused, and deeply unprepared for the heat. And when they stumbled across Maya settlements with stone domes hissing steam and naked villagers strolling out glowing like candles, they didn't see cosmic portals. They saw bathhouses, primitive ones. The clash was instant. You peek through the steam, toward the faint noise outside. It's easy to imagine the scene a Maya elder tries to explain the ritual significance of the Temazcal. The Spanish priest frowns, muttering something about heresy. A soldier peers inside, takes one breath of steam, and nearly faints. Not because it's dangerous, because it's different, and therefore obviously threatening. Historians still argue whether the Spanish ever really understood what they were destroying. Some say they thought the Temazcal was a site for devil worship, pointing to the chanting, the incense, the disorientation. Others claim they saw it as a symbol of idolatry, and that was enough. What they didn't see, what they refused to see, was the humanity behind the heat. One conquistador described the Temazcal as a stone womb of witchcraft. Another called it a place where naked savages boiled themselves like stew. You sigh. That particular one probably passed out in under 5 minutes and never recovered from the embarrassment. They tried to shut them down, ban them, burn them. And in some places they succeeded. Whole villages tore down their sweat lodges, rebuilt them in secret, or simply stopped using them altogether. The jungle reclaimed the stone dome's vines curling over sacred entrances like a closing eyelid. but not everywhere. Some Maya communities held on. Quietly. A temazcal tucked behind a home. A ceremony spoken only in whispers. A ritual passed down not through books but through touch scent heat. You glance at the center stones now cooled just slightly and imagine the conversations held here as the world changed outside. Nobles trying to plan revolts, mothers whispering warnings, children being told never to mention the steam lodge when the priests were nearby. A fringe theory claims that the very shape of the temazcal helped it survive. Its dome so humble, so unassuming, allowed it to hide in plain sight. No tall towers to topple, no grand idols to deface, just a lump in the ground that most outsiders ignored. There's poetic justice in that, but even the structures that were abandoned weren't truly lost. Centuries later, archaeologists would stumble across them buried in leaves, and time crawl inside with flashlights and notebooks and feel the breath of history on their necks. In one case, a team excavated a temazcal that hadn't been entered in over 400 years. Inside, they found remnants of burned copal, a cracked gourd bowl, and a single folded piece of cloth. No gold, no bones. Just quiet evidence that someone had come here, lit the fire, and waited. Not for riches, but for silence. The jungle outside your steam dome shudders again. The Spanish voices are gone now, faded like a bad dream. You're back in the timeless rhythm of breath and heat, but the echo of that disruption lingers. You think about all the rituals that disappeared during colonization. Languages forgotten, songs unsung, names erased. But not this, not entirely. Because even today, in remote corners of Guatemala and southern Mexico, you'll find temazcals still in use. Made from cinder blocks instead of stone, maybe. Or tarps and bamboo. But the idea is the same. The breath. The heat, the intention, the remembering. There's a woman now seated near the exit. Her hair is short, her face lined with age and sun. She holds a clay bowl filled with herbs and coals. You recognize her? She was quiet earlier, observing. But now she begins to speak softly, not to anyone in particular, just to the room. Her voice is calm, deliberate, like a schoolteacher telling a bedtime story. And in a way she is. She speaks of her grandmother's lodge, of hiding under the benches during ceremonies, of being told to close her eyes when the heat grew too strong, and to breathe in through her nose, out through her heart. The heat is not your enemy, she says. It is your teacher. She places a pinch of herbs on the embers. The scent is new lemony, clean sharp. Maybe basil, maybe something older. You breathe it in and you feel something shift. The past, the present, the interruption, the resistance, it's all here woven into the steam. Because no matter how many invaders came, how many rituals were banned, how many priests tried to shut the doors, the heat never left, and neither did the people who understood it. The steam feels older now, like it's carrying not just heat, but history. You shift slightly, careful not to disturb the quiet hum that settled over the group. It's not a chant, not quite. Just the sound of many people breathing together slowly in and out as if their lungs were stitched by the same thread. You look around the domed chamber again, and suddenly it looks different. Not just a structure, not even a temple. A memory, one with vines. You're no longer imagining the past. You're in it. But not the bustling cities, not the golden age of Maya civilization. No, this is centuries later. Long after the Spanish have tried to erase everything. Long after the priests have left. Long after the jungle has started to take back what was never truly gone. You step outside briefly, barefoot, blinking into the green. It's overgrown now, moss on every surface. Ferns crowding the stone path. The temazcal dome is half swallowed by vines, its round shape barely visible beneath the leaves. But it's still here, still solid, still warm. And nearby a woman. She's young, maybe 20, barefoot like you, carrying a bundle of herbs in one hand and a clay pot in the other. Her hair is tied back with a piece of woven cord and her blouse is simple, embroidered with red and black threads in tiny jaguar shapes. She doesn't see you because in this moment you're not really here. You're just watching. She crouches by the entrance, clears a few leaves, and mutters something softly. A prayer, probably. Then she enters alone. Back inside, she sets down her tools with the ease of someone who has done this before. She begins to hum low, soft, tuneless. She pours water over the stones one ladleful at a time. The hiss is quieter now, like the temazcal is tired but grateful. She's not a shaman in the ceremonial sense. She's not leading a group. She's not healing a noble or preparing for a battle. She's here for herself, and that might be the most sacred use of all. During the post-conquest period after cities had crumbled and temples were silent, many Maya traditions survived by going underground. Literally. Caves, huts, kitchens, and yes, temazcals. The rituals became smaller, more personal. Less performative, more private. Historians still debate how much was lost in that silence. Some say most of it. Others argue that even when the chant stopped and the temples were looted, the real rituals lived on in how a grandmother boiled her herbs and how a father lit the fire just so, and how a child was taught to place their palm flat on the stone and listen for a heartbeat. The young woman sits now, legs folded under her hands, resting on her thighs. She isn't moving much, just breathing, occasionally tossing a handful of herbs toward the center stones. It's not dramatic, it's not cinematic, but it's deeply, achingly alive. You imagine her thinking of someone. Maybe someone she lost or something she's afraid of. Maybe nothing at all. Maybe this is her place to not think, to burn the static out of her mind with steam and silence. A fringe belief held in certain Highland communities says that when the world grows too noisy, the stones will call to you. That they hum faintly in the soil. And that when you answer, when you step into the steam, you don't come for healing. You come to remember how to listen. And so she listens. You re-enter the temazcal, joining her again in the flickering dome. She doesn't look at you, of course this moment is hers. But in a way it feels shared. Like the dome holds everyone who's ever entered, layered like breath on breath, sweat on sweat, memory on memory. The stones are older now, darker. Their glow soft like embers under ash, but they're still hot, still alive. It's easy to romanticize ancient ruins, to see them as monuments frozen in time. But what the temazcal reminds you is that some ruins aren't ruins at all. They're rooms that waited, and were never truly empty. Outside, the vines continue to grow. The moss thickens. Rain patters gently on the leaves overhead. Birds call in the distance, not caring that they're singing over something sacred. Or maybe they do care. Maybe they're part of it. And the woman inside finishes her session. She stands slowly, her knees cracking softly. She doesn't rush. She places one hand on the dome wall in unspoken thanks, then steps outside into the damp morning light. The steam follows her like a shawl. She disappears down the forest path, and the dome is quiet again, until the next heartbeat arrives. Back inside the dome, time slips again. Not forward, not back, but somewhere sideways. You open your eyes to find yourself kneeling beside a modern archaeologist flashlight tucked between her teeth. Fingers dusted in limestone, and sweat face furrowed with the exact kind of focused frustration that only comes from digging through centuries of someone else's secrets. The dome around you is half collapsed, but intact enough to guess its former shape. The roof is cracked, letting shafts of light cut through the dim. Every step echoes against the stone like a whisper from something that hasn't been spoken of in centuries. She brushes aside a layer of dirt, reveals a soot-blackened stone, then another, and another. Still warm, she mutters. She's joking, of course. But part of you wonders. You shift to get a better look and spot a circle of charcoal long cooled. In the center, fragments of broken pottery, a scattering of beads, what looks like the edge of a carved obsidian blade. Not much to the untrained eye, but to her, it's everything. This is the part of the story where science meets ghosts. Modern archaeologists didn't always pay attention to structures like these. The big pyramids got the glory. The ball courts, the altars, the royal tombs, but a lumpy stone dome tucked into a corner of a forgotten site that didn't scream mystical wonder to early explorers. Until they started going inside. Until they saw the scorch marks, the soot, the wear patterns on the floor. Until they found herbs carbonized in the corners, or soot-covered bowls positioned with almost ceremonial precision. These weren't kitchens. They weren't guard posts. They were memories sealed in stone. Historians still argue over the purpose of specific temazcals. Some think they were strictly medicinal. Others swear they were all ceremonial. Still others see them as transitional spaces, wombs, before battle, before birth, before death, One thing they agree on: they were built to last. You step back and let the archaeologist work. She gently picks up a bead, holding it to the light. It's jade but worn. Probably a personal object. Maybe part of a necklace. Or an offering. Or just something someone brought in because they couldn't bear to leave it behind. Archaeology is slow magic. There's no flash of revelation, no sudden ancient inscription that reads, "This is where we steamed and cried." Just layer after layer of hints, fragments, smudges, heat stains. But sometimes the dome speaks. There's a case from Belize not far from the border, where a team unearthed a collapsed temazcal, buried under a few centuries worth of mud and rain. Inside, preserved in the damp bundles of herbs wrapped in cotton cloth. Still scented. Still potent. When they tested them, they found traces of chamomile cacao, even a psychoactive relative of mint, and nearby a tiny handprint pressed into the stone floor. No name, no record. Just a single perfect reminder that someone was here. Maybe a child watching a ceremony, maybe a mother's farewell, maybe a final moment before the Spanish arrived. You imagine the archaeologist discovering it, crouching in the silence, gently brushing it clean. And then sitting there, not measuring, not analyzing, just being still. That's what the temazcal does. Even centuries later, it slows you down. It humbles you. The stones are patient. They waited for someone to return, and now you're here. She reaches into a crack in the floor and pulls out something odd, a small figurine about the size of a thumb. Worn smooth, but still detailed enough to make out the shape a crouching figure hands over its stomach head, bowed. She smiles. "I think this one was here for healing," she says. You nod, though she can't see you. She sets it aside carefully, then scribbles in her notebook. You glance over her shoulder. She doesn't just write data, she writes feelings. Things like room has strange resonance or steam stain suggests ritual, not daily use. Notes for herself or for the next generation of dreamers who'll come poking around in the past, trying to connect the dots through fog. A fringe theory among her colleagues is that some archaeologists get a kind of temazcal fever, an emotional fixation on these structures. They crawl into one and suddenly want to know everything: what was said, what was felt, what was left behind. You don't doubt it. This place gets into your skin. Before she packs up, she lights a stick of copal incense and sets it in a fire-safe bowl near the center stones. Not part of the protocol, but no one's watching, and she wants to say thank you. The smoke rises slowly, and for a moment it feels like someone else is breathing with you. You step outside as she packs her tools. The jungle is quiet. The site is still. But inside that crumbling dome, you know the story hasn't ended. It just needs a little more steam. The sun outside has shifted. Not that you noticed. In here, time folds like damp cloth. But now the heat isn't only coming from the stones. It's coming from the day itself, mid-afternoon in a Guatemalan valley, where the air pulses and the birds get quiet out of respect. You step out of the temazcal for a moment, barefoot on warm earth, blinking through the haze of humidity. But something's different now. There's a hum, not spiritual this time, but electric. Somewhere faintly you hear a ringtone, then a rooster, then a motorcycle. You're not in the past anymore. You're in a small village just outside Quetzaltenango. It's 2025, and someone is about to pour water on a new set of stones. The temazcal here is a squat cinder block hut with a tin roof and a door made from a repurposed sheet of metal. At first glance, it looks like a garden shed, until the smoke starts curling out from under the eaves. Inside, it's not so different. It's hotter than any room has a right to be, and already you're dripping. The stones are arranged in a tight circle, and at the center is a plastic bucket full of water. There's a bowl of herbs, a few candles, and next to them on a small wooden bench, a phone plugged into a portable speaker. The woman running the session is in her 30s, wearing jeans and a sweat-streaked tank top. Her hair is twisted into a loose knot, and she speaks in a mixture of Spanish and Quiche. She greets everyone with a nod, no frills. She's not a shaman. She's just Rosa. And for 10 years, she's run this temazcal out of her backyard. Every Saturday and Wednesday evening, she builds the fire, prepares the stones, sweeps the floor, and puts out a sign. Temazcal abierto. Traiga su toalla. Sweat lodge open. Bring your towel. People come. Not just locals. Travelers, students, elders, new mothers, hungover tourists. One guy from Canada who cried for 45 minutes and said it changed his life. Rosa doesn't advertise. She doesn't need to. Word spreads like steam. You sit on the low bench beside a teenager scrolling through her phone. She turns it off before the session starts, tucks it in her shoe. Beside her, an older man mutters a blessing under his breath. Rosa kneels, checks the stones, then closes the door. Darkness, heat, silence. Then the hiss water over stone. And just like that, it's 900 AD again. The herbs she uses are local. Some she grows herself: basil, lemongrass, wild chamomile. Others she buys from a woman who knows an abuela who swears by them. The mix changes every week. Rosa says it depends on what the village feels like: too anxious. Something calming, too tired. Something sharp. Too many colds, eucalyptus. Too many broken hearts, copal and cinnamon bark. The people in this room aren't here for tourism. They're here because they still believe the steam knows how to listen. And even if they don't believe they know, it helps. A woman speaks softly about her daughter's upcoming wedding. A man shares a dream that's been bothering him. Rosa says nothing at first, just keeps the heat steady, lets the steam do the work. Historians still debate whether the modern use of temazcals is authentic. As if sweat needs a certificate. As if the old domes would be insulted by the tin roof. But to those in this room, authenticity isn't about perfect replication. It's about continuity, and this is continuous. One fringe theory proposed by a sociologist rather than an archaeologist argues that the temazcal is one of the few pre-Columbian spaces that has adapted without losing its soul. It's gone plastic where it needed to, cement when necessary, but the purpose that never changed. You sit back and feel it, the steam rising slow and soft, the breath of the people around you. Rosa murmuring now, not chanting, but remembering, telling stories from her grandmother. A time she got sick, a time she healed, a time she cried so hard she flooded the stones. You wonder if Rosa has ever been to a museum, seen the diagrams, the old floor plans, the reconstructions. Maybe not. Maybe she doesn't need to, because she is the continuity. She reaches for the water bowl again and pauses. Her eyes close. Her lips move without sound. Then the splash, the hiss, the sigh. Even the teenager next to you is still now, breathing deep. You remember one of Rosa's sayings passed from her mother, "La piedra no olvida." The stone doesn't forget. You believe her. Outside, someone's rooster crows again. The speaker buzzes softly as the Bluetooth drops connection. No one moves to fix it. The heat is too thick, the moment too deep. And for the first time you realize something. The Maya didn't stop building temazcals. They just stopped asking permission. You step out of Rosa's backyard temazcal, the steam trailing off your shoulders like silk pulled from a bath. The sky is streaked with purple now, the sun melting behind the hills. Your shirt clings to your back. Your skin glistens, and every breath feels like it came from a deeper lung than you remembered having. But your mind's still somewhere else. A map starts to draw itself in your head. Not a map of roads, a map of sweat. Because once you've sat in the heat like this, once you've seen how the tradition carried itself forward through an empire, jungle plastic buckets, and Bluetooth speakers, you start to wonder just how far it went. How many places the steam touched, and how many domes might still be standing half buried in moss waiting for someone to light the fire again. You start to trace it, north into Chiapas, where the Lacandon Maya still maintain their own sweat lodges deep in the rainforest. Their temazcals are smaller, rounder, wrapped in palm thatch and twine. Some are little more than earthen mounds with stone pits inside, but they serve the same purpose, the same breath, the same sweat. The west into Oaxaca, where Mixtec communities use similar structures, though they don't always call them temazcals. The word changes, the shape shifts, but the idea remains: steam as sacrament, heat as healer. Further still into the highlands, where Quiche and Kachikal villages keep them tucked behind homes and under corrugated roofs, still mixing herbs in clay bowls, still teaching their children to step inside with reverence. You zoom out, south now toward Honduras and El Salvador. The word might disappear entirely in these regions, replaced with local dialects or Spanish approximations. But the ritual doesn't vanish. In some Lenca communities, the same round structures exist with coals and smoke and prayers woven into their walls. Historians still argue over how far the practice spread. Some say it was mostly central to the Maya heartland. Others, pointing to shared traditions in Aztec and Zapotec lands, argue that steam was a continent-wide ceremony, one of the oldest. Like fire, like dance. One compelling theory claims that the spread of sweat lodges paralleled trade routes. That the same traders who carried obsidian and cacao also carried rituals. Not by force, just by rhythm. You bring a bundle of jade, you bring your stories. You sleep on someone's floor, you share your customs, they share theirs. And somewhere in that exchange, someone builds a dome. In modern-day Mexico, you find temazcals and luxury spas now. All-inclusive resorts offer ancestral steam experiences for an extra fee. They come with white robes, cucumber water, and a man named Todd with a certification in Mesoamerican purification. It's well-meaning, it's also a bit ridiculous. But still, it's there. Even if the stone's been replaced with tile. Even if the chants have been replaced with Spotify playlists, the idea survived. A fringe belief even among some scholars is that the temazcal didn't just spread by people. It spread by need. That even if a village had never heard of the Maya, if the conditions were right stone firewater ritual, they would invent the sweat lodge. Because humans seek heat. We seek silence. We seek the womb we came from. Maybe that's why sweat lodges appear around the world. In Scandinavia, in Russia, in Japan, in North America, in South America. Different names, different gods, but the same principle getting sit, still suffer a little come out cleaner. The steam is universal. You return to the map in your mind. It stretches wider now. You think of a temazcal in a crumbling village courtyard, one under a freeway overpass in Mexico City, one next to a cornfield, one tucked behind a taco stand in Tulum. Some fancy, some rusted, some barely standing, but all of them breathing. The stones remember. So does the steam. One archaeologist once joked, "If you ever get lost in the jungle, don't look for a temple, look for the temazcal. The temple's for the gods. The saunas for the people. You smile, because that feels right. The temple was where you performed your beliefs. But the temazcal, that's where you felt them. And perhaps that's why it spread not like an empire, but like a language. Whispered from mother to daughter, from healer to patient, from friend to friend. No grand declarations, just a quiet dome, a bowl of herbs, a long exhale. Now, as you look down at your map of steam, you see not roads, but trails of warmth. Thin, smoky lines curling from one jungle to the next, from valley to village, from ancient to now. No borders, just breath. And every line on that map leads back to the same place. A circle of stone, a pit of fire, a body sweating, remembering who it is. You're back inside. Not any one temazcal now, but all of them. They blend in your mind, stone walls and palm frond roofs, ancient masonry and modern concrete, the scent of copal and lemongrass. You've sweat through centuries, sat with farmers and nobles, midwives and warriors, tourists and toddlers. And now the stones glow one last time. You take your place in the circle, the final stones lowered into the center pit. They're not flashy, just river-worn basalt, dark and dimpled. But they radiate a familiar hum, like something that's been waiting for you to come back. You sit, you breathe, the steam rises. Above you, the roof is gone. There's only sky, ink black velvet, endless. Through the rising mist, you see stars, so many stars. And that's when you understand something you didn't before. The temazcal was never just about the body. It was about the cosmos. To the Maya, everything was connected, the underworld, the earth, the heavens. And this dome, it sat at the center of that cosmic model. A miniature universe. The floor was the world you knew. The stones, the sun, the steam, the breath of gods, the hole in the ceiling, the sky portal. You weren't just sweating. You were traveling. Historians still debate how deeply the temazcal tied into Maya cosmology. Some claim it was simply practical. Others insist it was a full ritual microcosm, a replica of the universe built at human scale. A place to reenact creation, destruction, rebirth. To step in as one thing and emerge as another. Tonight you believe the latter. You're not just sitting in a dome. You're sitting in a model of the world. And maybe that's why it works. Why people keep coming back to it. Why the practice hasn't vanished despite everything. Because it makes you feel placed, like you belong in the world again. Not above it, not beneath it, but within it. One fringe belief whispered only in certain villages says that when someone dies, their final journey begins in the steam. That the soul becomes vapor curling up through the roof hole and into the sky. You think about that now, not with fear, but with a kind of comfort. The dome feels fuller now. The air thicker, not with heat, but memory. The woman who gave birth here. The child who left a handprint in the floor. The shaman who wept alone in the dark. Rosa with her Bluetooth speaker. The noble with his jaguar pendant. The archaeologist with her notebook and candle. And you. You're all here somehow sharing the same air. A single uninterrupted breath. You lean forward and place your hand on the nearest stone. It's warm, alive. And for a moment you swear it hums. The steam swirls around you once more. Slow now, dreamlike. You close your eyes and the dome begins to fade, not vanish, just soften. Like it's pulling back into mist, into memory, into you. You're not sure when the steam disappeared. It didn't leave exactly, it just quieted. Thinned. Like a story ending without a final sentence. The dome around you is calm now. The stones are cool. The earth beneath you is still warm but no longer pulsing. The breath of the place has slowed, matched your own. Outside the jungle is silent. Even the insects have stopped for a moment as if listening. You step out of the Tamaz call one final time. The night air kisses your skin cool and fragrant. Every star above you feels closer now, like they've inched forward just to say goodnight. You stretch gently your limbs, loose your thoughts soft and low. You've traveled far without leaving the room. Slipped through centuries. Breathed the same steam as kings and healers, farmers and newborns. And through it all, the dome held you. Now the fire is dimmed. The stones rest. The breath slows. You carry the heat with you, not the burn, but the warmth. The memory. The echo of something sacred, something simple. A reminder that the body remembers. That the earth listens. That sometimes the oldest rituals are the ones we need the most. So if your eyes are heavy now, that's all right. Let them close. Let the last curls of steam rise through your dreams. And know that somewhere deep in a jungle glade or a quiet backyard, a circle of stones still waits. Still warm. Still breathing.